You may have heard about the UK government releasing this game called Pathways. They say, Navigating Gaming, the Internet and Extremism, a free youth-centered interactive learning package for education on extremism, radicalization, and prevent. And the point of this video is not to tell you about this game, it's to show you how recently this game is completely backfired on the UK government. It ended up doing the opposite of what they wanted, but we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. Let me point this out first, because this little pop-up that you get when you visit their homepage is hilarious. It says, sign up to our monthly newsletter to keep up with the world of political and media literacy education. It's hilarious because, as you know, what they're describing as media literacy is really just, hey, do you fall for our propaganda? If you do, you're media literate. Good job. Good job. You you don't have independent thinking, so we're going to say that that's actually media literacy and try to make you feel good about it. It's a very obvious rhetorical manipulation tactic, and yet some people actually fall for it. And you can see this exact same tactic being used by pseudo-intellectual Reddit tier activists who throw the term critical thinking around. What they really mean is, hey, do you unquestionably subscribe to our activist rhetoric? If yes, we're going to label you a critical thinker. Good job. But if no, if you question this stuff, if you actually think about it, we're going to label you someone who doesn't have critical thinking. It's obviously ridiculous and yet another rhetorical manipulation tactic. But anyways, going back to this Pathways game by the UK government, as mentioned, I want to tell you about how this has backfired on them so much. It literally ended up doing the opposite of what they were trying to do. So one of the pathways in this game is going the villain/bad route. And that involves befriending this character, Amelia, who's supposed to be like the antagonist of the game. And she has horrible ideas like criticizing the government's policies on immigration. Oh, how dare you criticize the UK government and how objectively their immigration policies have been a net negative in many ways. But if you dare talk about that, if you dare so much as criticize the government, oh, you're going down this radicalization route, this villain, this bad route, how dare you do that? And so they make this character Amelia to try to help persuade people not to go down that route by framing her as like an extremist or something. But it turns out that most people actually found Amelia to be the most reasonable person in the game, which has resulted in people not going against Amelia, but actually siding with her, finding her to be based and making a bunch of fan art of her, memes of her, etc., etc. And look how absurd this is. This is an example of what the UK government was trying to frame as like evil, bad, villain stuff. So the text reads, Amelia, Charlie's close friend, has made a video encouraging young people in Bridlington to join a political group that seeks to defend English rights. So you're an English person concerned about English rights. That's apparently extremist and bad. How ridiculous is that? Hey, if you're concerned about your rights, you're a right-wing extremist? That is insane. Check this one out. This one says, somebody else in the class tells Charlie that this is proof that immigrants are coming to the UK and taking our jobs. So the UK government is going to sit there telling people not to be concerned about their immigration policies, and that if you're concerned about these policies, you're a right-wing extremist, you're a bad person. What makes this even crazier is that mere days ago, around January 9th of this year, the United Arab Emirates began restricting funding for its citizens to study abroad at British universities over tensions with the UK for the UK government refusing to label the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. In other words, the UAE, which is one of the most prominent Muslim countries in the world, is saying that the UK government is radically pro-Islamic terror. But again, the UK government will turn around and tell people that if they're concerned about any of this, that they're the ones who are the problem. Now, for argument's sake, you know, the UK government's trying to say like, oh, we don't want to label them a terrorist organization. Here's the thing. Even if the UK government wants to say that, it's still an example of immense hypocrisy, because the Muslim Brotherhood openly talks about how they want a global Islamic state. That is their end goal. They want a global Islamic state. And the UK government is apparently more fine with that concept than they are the concept of an English citizen being concerned about English rights in England. With that little segue aside though, let's return to talking about this Pathways game and how much this has backfired on the UK government, and how reasonable people that found out about this game all decided to side with Amelia. In other words, no one fell for the government's propaganda. Here we can see some fan art of Keir Starmer wishing for Amelia to die because she has the audacity to say England for the English and wave St. George's flag. something that we've already seen the UK government for over a year now complain about. Oh, how dare you fly St. George's flag? That is a symbol of hate. You know, they try to say nonsense like that. This account on Twitter, Christmas Brick, would post this edit of the manga Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, saying, don't radicalize me, Miss Amelia. It's a pretty funny edit there. We got people making edits with Grok, showing Amelia like dancing there with, once again, St. George's cross. This account posting Amelia waving the Union Jack and saying UK doesn't know what they did. Doesn't know what they've done, do they? This account posting a meme of the main character meeting Amelia, siding with Amelia, marrying Amelia, and having a family with Amelia. I'll show this one again. This fan art done by Juju, saying, got very inspired to draw Amelia, not AI, and showing Amelia there, holding up the no entry sign from the game, and again, the Union Jack. With over 10,000 likes, we've also got our based VTuber Leaflet saying, Amelia, the last rose of Albion, would you watch it? And posting this 1-minute trailer.
ねえ、チャーリー、イギリスのこと、好き？
どうして行かないなんて言ったんだろう。君はただ僕らの未来を送ってくれていたのに。
行こう。世界を変えに。
残念ね、チャーリー君。そんな有害な考えを持っているなんて更生施設に入ってもらうわね。許されることではないの。
あのアメリアって子は全く悪影響なんだよ。
文化を守りたいっていう気持ちのどこが悪いの？みんな自分の生まれた国や文化が大事なはずでしょう。悪いことだなんて私には思えない。
うん。今度は一緒に行くよ。
So yeah, it's really great, the stuff that people are coming up with. And it's hilarious to see, once again, how much this has backfired on the UK government. Now, I do have an update for you guys. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that it was being reported that this game was taken down. And it looks like that period where the game was removed was only for about 24 hours or so. And it's apparently now back up. I'm not sure if they ended up censoring anything or removing anything. You know, maybe part of the Amelia quest line, so to speak. You know, Amelia pathway or whatever they want to call it. And maybe some of the endings that you can get. You know, I'm not too sure what the conclusion with that is. But again, you know, hilarious stuff how the government in the UK is just like seething about how people ended up siding with Amelia. What's not funny, though, is the real-world implications. For example, a state-funded computer game, that being Pathways, obviously, that we've been talking about, is warning teenagers that they risk being referred to a counter-terrorism program if they question mass migration. Pathways is an interactive game designed for 11 to 18-year-old pupils and funded by Prevent, a home office program for tackling extremism. Young players are directed to help their in-game characters, a white teenage boy and girl, to avoid being reported for extreme right-wing ideology after discussing migration online. Characters can face extremism referrals if they choose to engage with groups that spread quote-unquote harmful ideological messages, or join protests against the erosion of British values, quote-unquote. Even researching online immigration statistics is portrayed negatively. Because how dare citizens try to keep themselves informed and question the government's propaganda? Anyways, that's Pathways and how it completely failed to achieve what the UK government wanted it to achieve. But let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.